everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Giovanna, and today I'll be talking about my personal LSAT study routine that I used while I was studying for the LSAT. I did make a video, I literally made this video a couple weeks ago, but y'all, I was rambling so bad, and I was like, you know what, I have to redo this video because I just want to be able to get to the point and just share what I really did. And so in my previous video, I did talk about how I made a 136 on my first LSAT. I took the July LSAT flex back in 2020, and then on my second LSAT I made a 159, and that was August 2021. And so I think the way I want to do this video is just first talk about some of the resources and tools that I use, and then go into my study techniques, and then go into my study schedule. So before I dive into some of the resources and tools that I use, I will say for that 136 exam, y'all, I was just studying all wrong. I did not have a set study schedule in place. I was not taking enough practice exams. Maybe some of the resources that I was using weren't as beneficial as they should have been. And so when it came time for me to restudy for the exam, I feel like I just reevaluated everything I was doing. So in terms of books, I would definitely recommend the PowerScore Bible books. So I use PowerScore Logical Reasoning and PowerScore Logic Games books. And I love those books because they were very much in depth and they were very thorough. And it was very easy for me to always go back and just review whatever information or notes they had within the books. Another book I would recommend is Manhattan Prep Reading Comprehension. So when it comes to reading comprehension, y'all, I waited till maybe last minute to start studying for that, because in my head, I'm thinking, oh, it's reading comprehension, how hard can it be? But that was definitely a lie, because towards the end, I noticed that was probably the section I was missing the most questions on. And it was more so basically just trying my best to read the passage and answer all the questions within that specific time frame. And so with the Manhattan Prep Reading Comprehension book, it definitely did help me with my speed. And so I do recommend that book. It does break down question types and passage types and all of that type of stuff. And so definitely get that book if you are having a hard time with reading comprehension. So the last thing I want to mention is the LSAC LawHub, and with that, all it basically is all the past official LSATs compiled onto one site, and it's in the same digital format that you would use on your actual LSAT. And so for me, what was great about it was not only was I able to take simulated practice exams, but I used to go into different exams and just do a certain section just so I can get some practice in the actual digital format the test would be in, so I can get accustomed to how it looks and how it feels and things of that sort. So I would definitely recommend that you get the LSAC LawHub in terms of practice and practice exams. And I'm not sure if it's free. I think if you do have a fee waiver with LSAC, you do get it for free. However, if not, you may have to pay $100. I'm not sure if it's still the same, but I'm pretty sure you can find that information on LSAC.com. So basically that's it in terms of resources. So it's the PowerScore Bible books, PowerScore Logical Reasoning, PowerScore Logic Games, Manhattan Prep Reading Comprehension, 7Sage, and LSAC LawHub. Now, I will say before my 136, I was using Khan Academy, and for me personally, it was not as beneficial as I wish it would have been. I just wasn't seeing the growth, and I felt like it was very repetitive. But that was for me personally, so I'm not saying that if you use it, it's not going to work out. But I do know that I did discontinue that early on. And I also say that I did use LSAT Trainer very briefly. And the issue I was having with LSAT Trainer was that it was more general compared to the PowerScore books I was used to using. And also some of the methods and techniques were different from the PowerScore books I was using. And so I was running into this conflict where I sort of felt overwhelmed in terms of how to figure out how to solve a problem or how to answer a question. And essentially, I just wanted to make sure I was using everything in a balanced way. So with this whole study journey, LSAT study journey, everybody's going to be different. Some people may use multiple resources. Some people may just use one resource. It's just different for everybody. I know for me, it was trial and error, just trying my best to figure out what worked best for me and my learning style. And so definitely don't feel discouraged if you you are having a hard time figuring out what works out best for you. Essentially, you just want to make sure that you find something that you are able to learn with and is helping you out the most. So when it comes down to study techniques, the main thing for me was just being able to understand the concept before moving on to practice and moving on to the next concept. And so I was a big note taker. And so if it came down to a certain concept like linear games, I would go into the PowerScore logic games book, see what it says about linear games, write down some notes, do some practice problems, and then go into 7 Sage, see what it says about linear games there as well, do some practice problems, and go from there. And so it may have been redundant, but for me, it was very beneficial because it was helping me to understand and figure out a certain type of method that will work best for me on the exam. Another thing, like I mentioned earlier, was going into LSAC LawHub and not necessarily doing a simulated practice exam, but just taking a certain exam and doing practice problems within it. So that was also helpful. And I would also say when it came to actual practice exams, it wasn't until towards the end when I started really doing more simulated practice exams. And for that, I essentially would try my best to make it feel like I was actually taking the real LSAT test. And at first it used to be difficult because I would be pulling out my phone maybe 30 minutes into the test, or doing one section, taking a break, and on the actual test, that's not how it actually goes, And so it took a while for me to get to the point where I'm actually sitting down in one place and taking the exam as if it was test day. And so you definitely want to be able to build on that, especially as you're getting near to your test exam day. And I will say, although I did make a 159 on my actual exam, I was scoring into the low 160s towards my exam day. But when I made that 159, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take it, and I'm gonna go with it or whatever. So definitely make sure you are taking simulated practice exams, getting close to your test day. Another thing I would say is make sure that you are reviewing your errors on the practice exams, because that was something I was not doing at first. And so when I did start 7 Sage, I did learn what blind review was, which essentially is you're taking your exam and then you're documenting the questions that you're unsure of. And once you're done, you just go back and you answer those questions that you were unsure of. You just redo them without the time constraint, and you're just able to compare that. So it's very helpful for me. And I know it's a little extra, but what I used to do was I would go into LawHub and I would take the practice exam. I would write down the questions I was having a hard time on, and then I would just go into 7 Sage, transfer all of those answers, and then just do blind review on there. And so it was a little extra because 7 Sage does have the practice exam already on their site. But like I said, I just love utilizing LawHub, just making it seem like I was taking the actual LSAT. And so you don't have to do all that, but definitely just make sure that you are reviewing those errors and even the right answers on your test. And it may seem time consuming at first. I know for me, like I would make sure I would just have one day to do my test, and maybe I would do blind review, but I wouldn't go through the questions until like maybe a day or two later, because I would just be exhausted from taking the test. So just make sure that you are doing whatever that works best for you and your schedule. And last thing I forgot to mention, when it comes to like tools that I used, I bought 2 3-subject notebooks, and one was for notes and the other was for practice exams and blind review. And so I would divide it by sections. So I had logical reasoning, logic games, and reading comprehension. I would also use like flashcards for like logical reasoning in terms of like question types, which would be very helpful. So I write like the question type on the front, and then on the back, I would write how to find that question type. And I also say that I did invest in a good planner when it came to my study schedule, which was also very beneficial. So speaking of study schedule, it was very important for me to be organized, especially after my 136, because like I said, I was all over the place. I was a hot mess. And so definitely make sure that you do create a study schedule that will work with whatever you have in your life in terms of other responsibilities. So for me personally, I did have to cut back on some hours at work. So when it came to my study schedule, I was just trying my best to balance out my work schedule with my study schedule. And I think I was also out of school by the time I was studying after my 136, so I did have some time there. But of course I had other responsibilities as well, so I just made sure to create something that I knew that I could stick to. So I would definitely recommend just buying a good planner or a calendar. I know for me personally, I got mine from like Target or Walmart, I think. Just buy something that you're able to use. It doesn't have to be complicated or complex, and just run with it. And so for me personally, I think with my study schedule, I was studying for about 4 to 5 days a week, maybe 2 to 6 hours each, just depending on the day and what I had going on. And I would plan accordingly. So basically, if I was studying for 6 hours one day, I would break down my time. So I would do 2 hours early in the morning, maybe 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., 2 hours in the afternoon, maybe 12 to 2, and then 2 hours in the late afternoons, so 4 to 6. And I would just break down my time accordingly. And so I would maybe study for 30 to 45 minutes, give myself a 5 to 10 minute break, and then go back. And I'll also say with my days, like if I knew I was off the next day, I would utilize that day I got off of work to put in some more hours in studying, since I knew the next morning I didn't have to wake up early and I could just continue studying from there. So like I said, just make sure you're creating a schedule that works best for you and the amount of time that you have. And I would definitely say make sure you're extending grace to yourself, because there were days, y'all, when I was not in the mood to study. I was tired, I was over it. And discipline is definitely key, but you also want to make sure that you're giving yourself rest, and make sure that you are just taking it day by day, I guess, taking your time with it, I guess. My final thoughts are just, do not be discouraged. You know, if you are on this study journey, if you are trying to figure out what works best for you, just keep going. Just know that you're putting in the effort already, you're putting in the time already, and that's what matters most. You know what I mean? And I know for me personally, during that time, I would go on YouTube and I'll research different videos. Just trying to figure out what worked best for this person and this other person, and basically see what I can use essentially as well. And so it's different for everybody, and you know, it's just something that once you're in the process of doing, you'll figure it out. You'll figure out what works best for you. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was at least a little beneficial for y'all. Make sure that you do drop any comments or questions below. You can also DM me on my Instagram page at Black Women for Law. I am thinking about sharing my personal study schedule on my Instagram page. I'm not too sure yet. I'll figure out a way to do that. But just make sure that you also share below like any prep courses you use or books you use that were also helpful for you as well. And so thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you do subscribe and like this video. I'm thinking about also sharing like a law school decision video, because I have heard back from some schools. And so it's definitely been interesting, but by God's grace, you know, it's happening, and I'm just thankful and grateful for everything. And so like I said, just make sure that you do subscribe and stay tuned, and I will see you guys next time.